The unseen burden. In the depths of the galaxy, on the desolate planet of Altheria, a race of beings known as the Zarians thrived in a world of luminous landscapes and rich, vibrant flora. With their emerald skin and bioluminescent markings, they were beautiful creatures. However, their beauty hid a dark reality. The Zarians were facing extinction. A terrible plague swept through their population, leaving behind only the strongest to survive. Among the afflicted was a young Zarian woman named Lyra, whose spirit remained unbroken despite the suffering around her. One fateful day, Lyra's community gathered in a clearing, where the elders held a solemn ceremony. As they raised their voices in a haunting melody, Lyra watched her fellow Zarians, their faces a mixture of hope and despair. She felt a deep sense of responsibility. If she could survive this plague, perhaps she could find a way to save her people. But as the ceremony concluded, a chilling silence enveloped the crowd. "We have lost too many," the eldest elder, Grandmother Kayla, said, her voice trembling. "It is time to seek help beyond our stars." The gathered Zarians whispered among themselves, fear mingling with desperation. To seek aid from another species was taboo, a last resort that meant exposing their vulnerabilities to outsiders. However, they had no choice. Lyra's heart sank as she realized the gravity of their situation. Far away, on Earth, a retired engineer named Harold Jenkins sat on his porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. At 75, Harold had lived a long life filled with achievements and failures. His mind, however, often wandered back to the past. He had spent decades working on advanced technology, helping to shape the future of humanity. But now, in his twilight years, he felt the weight of his solitude. One evening, as Harold sipped his tea, an unusual humming filled the air. He looked up to see a streak of light flash across the sky, crashing somewhere in the nearby woods. Curiosity piqued, he decided to investigate. As he approached the crash site, he stumbled upon a peculiar spacecraft. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, adorned with swirling patterns of light. Cautiously, he stepped closer, his heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. He noticed the hatch slowly opening, revealing a figure slumped inside. To his astonishment, it was Lyra, the young Zarian, unconscious but alive. As days turned into weeks, Lyra's strength grew. She and Harold developed a plan, a way to use the technology from the crashed ship to communicate with her people. If she could convince them to accept help from humans, they could overcome the plague that ravaged their world. On the night of the transmission, Harold and Lyra worked feverishly in the makeshift lab he had created in his garage. The ship hummed with energy as they calibrated the devices. With each passing moment, Lyra felt the weight of her mission. Would her people understand her message? Would they trust the very species they once scorned? "Are you ready?" Harold asked, his eyes filled with encouragement. Lyra took a deep breath, determination coursing through her veins. "Ready as I'll ever be." With a trembling hand, she activated the device. Waves of energy surged from the ship, transmitting her message to Altheria. "I am Lyra, daughter of Altheria. I have found a way to help us. We must reach out to the humans." The silence that followed was deafening. Would they listen? Would they believe her? As the transmission ended, Lyra felt a mix of fear and hope. In that moment, she knew they had taken the first step toward changing the fate of her people, and perhaps the fate of two worlds. The response. As the transmission faded into the ether, Lyra and Harold sat in tense silence, the weight of their actions hanging heavily in the air. The glow from the ship's control panel illuminated their faces, revealing a blend of hope and trepidation. Lyra's heart raced as she stared at the blinking lights, waiting for any sign that her people had received the message. "Do you think they'll respond?" Harold asked, breaking the stillness. His voice was steady, yet the question hung in the air like an unspoken fear. Lyra swallowed hard, memories of her people's disdain for outsiders flooding her mind. "I hope so," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. but there's a part of me that fears they'll reject my plea. Harold nodded, his expression thoughtful. It's a big leap for them. Change is difficult, especially for a culture that has endured so much hardship. But you're strong, Lyra. You survived when they abandoned you. That speaks volumes about your character. She appreciated his words, but they did little to ease the knot of anxiety twisting in her stomach. Days passed, and each dawn brought with it the same unbearable uncertainty. Harold kept her occupied with stories of Earth's history, of wars fought, alliances formed, and the resilience of the human spirit. He spoke of how humanity had risen from the ashes of its own failures, learning to embrace change rather than shun it. Yet, as Lyra listened, a persistent worry gnawed at her heart. The longer they waited, the more desperate the situation on Altheria became. She could only imagine the suffering her people were enduring, how they might be struggling against the plague, feeling the life force drain from their bodies and the hope vanish from their hearts. Then, one fateful night, as the stars twinkled brightly against the deep velvet sky, a sudden chirp from the ship's control panel jolted them both to attention. The device that Harold had built flickered with life, casting vibrant colors across the garage. "Harold, it's working," Lyra exclaimed, her pulse quickening. He rushed to the console, fingers flying over the controls. "Let's see what we've got," he said, eyes gleaming with excitement. The screen displayed a chaotic jumble of data, images, and sound waves. After a few moments, the static began to clear, revealing a familiar face, Grandmother Kayla, her wise, lined face filled with urgency. Lyra's heart soared at the sight of her elder, the woman who had guided her people through countless trials. "Lyra, are you there?" Grandmother Kayla's voice crackled through the speakers, filled with a mix of relief and disbelief. "You are alive." "I am, Grandmother." Lyra's voice trembled with emotion. "I'm on Earth. I found a way to help us." The elder's expression shifted from shock to concern. "Help? How can a human possibly help us?" "Humans possess technology that could heal our people," Lyra replied, her voice steadying as she spoke. "They have resources we can use, knowledge we can learn from, but they need to know we are not a threat." Grandmother Kayla's eyes narrowed, skepticism etched on her face. "You are asking us to trust a species that has never cared for us. We do not even know if they will respond." "They will respond," Harold interjected, stepping closer to the screen, his presence a silent promise of support. "I can vouch for my people. We are not the monsters of legend. We have made mistakes, but we have also learned and grown. If we can work together, we can save your race." The elder's gaze flickered between the two, assessing. You have cared for her, haven't you? You have not harmed her." "I would never harm her," Harold replied earnestly. "Lyra is brave and resilient. Together, we can forge a new path, one that unites our worlds instead of dividing them." A long silence fell over the connection as Grandmother Kayla considered their words. Finally, she spoke, her voice softening. "Very well, Lyra. If you believe this is our only hope, we will listen. But know this, our people are suffering. If you fail to convince them, it will not only be your life on the line, but the lives of every Zaurian left." Lyra nodded, determination igniting within her. "I understand, Grandmother. I won't let you down. Together, we can change our fate." As the transmission ended, Lyra turned to Harold, her eyes alight with newfound resolve. "We have to prepare. I need to show them the best of humanity to prove we are worthy of their trust." "Let's start by creating a message," Harold suggested. "We need to showcase human innovation and compassion, something they can connect with." Over the next few days, they worked tirelessly. Harold gathered images and videos from his own life, moments of kindness, human ingenuity, and the collaborative spirit that defined Earth's progress. They combined these with Lyra's stories of her people's strength and resilience, weaving a narrative of hope. As they crafted their message, Lyra felt a profound sense of purpose. Each image reminded her of the warmth of community and the bonds that held them together. They chose to highlight not only the triumphs of humanity, but also the struggles, reflecting the very essence of what it meant to be alive. When they finished, Laura took a deep breath, her heart pounding. This is it. This is how we reach them. Harold placed a hand on her shoulder, offering reassurance. Remember, it's not just about the message. It's about the trust you build. They need to see you to feel your sincerity. With the device ready for transmission, Laura activated the controls. As the screen flickered to life, she glanced at Harold, who nodded, encouraging her to begin. "I am Lyra," she said, her voice clear and confident. "I come from Altheria, a planet facing extinction. We have suffered and lost much, but I believe we can find a way to save our worlds together. We need your help, not as saviors, but as allies." The message unfolded with images of humanity's greatest achievements, the first steps on the moon, breakthroughs in medicine, acts of kindness that changed lives. It illustrated the resilience and innovation that characterized the human spirit, intertwining with Lyra's tales of her people's history, their connection to their world, and their desperate hope for survival. After several moments of silence, Lyra concluded, "We are stronger together. Let us unite our strengths and forge a new future. We can change our fates, but we need you." As the transmission ended, Lyra turned to Harold, her breath hitching in her throat. "Will they respond? Did I convey enough?" Harold smiled, his eyes shining with pride. "You spoke from the heart, Lyra. That's all that matters. Now we wait." The days that followed were agonizing. Lyra's anticipation transformed into a whirlwind of emotions, battling between hope and fear. Every time she heard a sound, her heart leaped with excitement, only to be met with silence. But she couldn't let despair take hold. Each evening, she and Harold would sit under the stars, sharing their dreams and fears, imagining what a united future could look like. Harold painted vivid pictures of the possibilities, an exchange of knowledge, of culture, and of understanding that could reshape the galaxy. Then, one stormy night, as the winds howled outside, the ship's console came alive once more. The screen flickered to life, displaying a chaotic scene filled with motion and noise. Lyra's heart raced as the familiar face of Grandmother Kayla filled the screen, surrounded by other Zarians, their expressions a mix of hope and uncertainty. "Lyra," the elder exclaimed, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. "We have heard your message. We are ready to discuss your proposal." Lyra's heart soared, tears of relief filling her eyes. "You've accepted." Grandmother Kayla nodded, her expression grave. "But it is not without risks. Our people are divided. Some see this alliance as a betrayal, a sign of weakness. Others, however, believe we have no other choice. We are willing to meet, but you must be prepared for opposition." "I'll do whatever it takes," Lyra vowed, her determination shining through. "We will prove to them that unity is our only path forward." As the connection faded, Lyra turned to Harold, elated yet aware of the challenges ahead. "This is our chance to save my people. We must get ready to face them." Harold placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll face this together, Lyra. You've already changed their perspective just by being alive. Now let's give them something to believe in." With newfound determination, Lyra prepared for the journey ahead. She was ready to confront her people, ready to show them that hope and change were worth fighting for. The fate of the Zarians and the bond between two worlds hung in the balance. The gathering. The shimmering portal of light flickered as Lyra prepared to step through it, her heart pounding with both fear and hope. The craft had been an unusual refuge, but now it felt constrictive, as if its walls were closing in around her. Harold stood beside her, his presence a solid anchor in the swirling uncertainty. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice a soothing balm against her nerves. "I have to be," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "This is my chance to change everything for my people." With a deep breath, Lyra activated the portal. Waves of energy cascaded around her, and she felt herself pulled into a kaleidoscope of light and color. Moments later, she stumbled onto the familiar soil of Alvaria, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and blooming flora. Before her stood the remnants of her childhood home, a structure half overgrown with vivid green vines and colorful blossoms. The vibrant colors of her world always filled her with warmth, but today, that warmth was overshadowed by the gravity of her mission. As she moved toward the gathering point, a sense of unease crept over her. The village square was alive with the murmurs of her people, their vibrant skin tones contrasting sharply with the muted backdrop of their surroundings. Some of the faces were familiar, others were strangers, yet all wore expressions of curiosity tinged with skepticism. Grandmother Kayla stood at the center, her stance commanding and her eyes piercing. She was flanked by council members, each representing different factions of Zolrian society. Laura could see the divided opinions etched into their expressions, a mix of hope, fear, and resentment. "Lyra," Grandmother Kayla called, raising her hand to beckon her forward. The crowd hushed, a palpable tension hanging in the air. As Lyra stepped into the circle, she felt the weight of her people's gaze upon her. Some stared in disbelief, while others looked on with disdain, their mistrust apparent. Lyra straightened her spine and took a deep breath. "Thank you for gathering here," she began, her voice strong yet laced with vulnerability. "I know many of you may not believe in my return, nor in the promise of what I bring, but I have seen the heart of humanity, and I believe we can forge an alliance that will save us." A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Lyra could see the skepticism in their eyes, and it only fueled her resolve. She glanced at Harold, who stood just beyond the circle, his supportive smile offering her a lifeline. "We face a crisis," she continued, raising her voice to carry over the whispers. "The plague that ravages our people is a reflection of our own divisions. The longer we isolate ourselves, the weaker we become. We must embrace change, or we will perish." Grandmother Kayla stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "Change is frightening, Lyra. What you propose is not only dangerous, but it also goes against everything we have believed." "Perhaps it is time to question those beliefs," Harold interjected, stepping into the circle alongside Lyra. "Humanity has made mistakes, but we have also learned from them. We are not the enemies you think we are." The murmurs rose again, and several voices joined the fray, expressing their concerns and fears. "You are naive to trust these beings," one elder shouted, his voice thick with anger. "They have only brought us suffering." "But they also offer us hope," Lyra countered, her heart racing. "Look at the devastation we have endured. We are dying. If we do not act, we will lose everything we hold dear. Together, we can learn from one another, use our strengths to fight this plague." The crowd shifted, some faces reflecting doubt, while others began to show interest. Lyra could see the flickers of understanding start to ignite, and she pressed on. "I lived with Harold and learned about Earth's triumphs and tribulations. They have faced their own dark days, yet they've risen above them. They care deeply for their world and their allies. This is our opportunity to share knowledge, to heal and rebuild." Lyra's passion ignited a fire in her heart, her words pouring forth like a waterfall. She painted vivid images of Earth, humanity's kindness, innovation, and the indomitable spirit that had propelled them forward even in the face of adversity. She described the ways they had banded together to overcome their challenges, highlighting moments of unity and cooperation that had reshaped their history. "Imagine what we could achieve if we joined forces," she urged. "We could harness the healing technologies they possess, learn from their advancements, and create a world where both our peoples thrive." Grandmother Kayla remained stoic, yet there was a flicker of intrigue in her gaze. "And what if this alliance brings only ruin? What if we invite our destruction?" "Then we face that together," Harold replied earnestly. "We are willing to stand by your side, to fight with you. But first, we must trust each other. The greatest risk is not in taking a step forward, but in remaining stagnant while the world crumbles around us." The air was thick with tension as the crowd absorbed their words. Some began to whisper among themselves, glancing back and forth between Lyra, Harold, and grandmother Kayla. Lyra felt her heart race. Every second felt crucial. She sensed the fragile balance hanging in the air, teetering between fear and hope. Finally, grandmother Kayla spoke again, her voice calm yet firm. "You propose a summit, a meeting of our leaders and their kind to discuss this alliance." "Yes," Lyra replied, her heart pounding. "Let us invite them to our world. Let us show them who we are and what we can achieve together." A few voices rose in protest, but Lyra was ready. "We must take this chance. Our survival depends on it. We can build something new, something beautiful, but only if we open our hearts and minds to the possibilities." After a moment of silence, grandmother Kayla finally nodded. "We will convene a council. If we are to move forward, we must do so with the agreement of our leaders." Lyra felt a surge of relief wash over her. "Thank you, grandmother. I believe this is the first step toward healing our worlds." As the gathering began to disperse, Lyra turned to Harold, her heart filled with gratitude. "You were amazing out there. I don't know how I could have done this without you." Harold smiled, a warmth spreading through him. "You did all the heavy lifting, Lyra. Your courage brought them together. Now we just need to keep that momentum going." Over the next few days, the council meeting was organized. Lyra and Harold worked tirelessly, preparing for the arrival of the Zalrian leaders and discussing how to present the message of unity. They crafted a plan that would showcase Earth's advancements, their own resilience, and the potential benefits of collaboration. As the day of the summit approached, Lyra's nerves began to resurface. She understood the weight of the moment. The fate of her people and the potential alliance hung in the balance. When the day finally arrived, Lyra stood at the entrance of the meeting hall, her heart racing as the first wave of Zalrian leaders entered. Their vibrant forms filled the space, creating an air of tension mixed with anticipation. Each leader held the hopes of their faction, the future of their world resting on their decisions. Grandmother Kayla stood at the head of the table, her presence commanding attention. "Welcome, everyone. We are here to discuss a potential alliance with our Earth counterparts." Lyra and Harold took their seats, exchanging nervous glances. This was it, the moment that could change everything. "Let us hear from our guests," grandmother Kayla said, gesturing for Harold to speak. With a deep breath, Harold stood, drawing upon all the stories of resilience and innovation he had shared with Lyra. "Thank you for allowing us to join this discussion," he began, his voice steady. "We understand the fears you have regarding humanity, and we are here to address them. We are not just visitors, we are allies." He shared tales of humanity's growth, the power of collaboration, and the advancements that could be shared with the Zalrians. The room grew quiet as he illustrated the ways in which they could combat the plague together, harnessing technology and knowledge from both worlds. As the discussion continued, the atmosphere began to shift. Many of the leaders began to ask questions, curiosity overcoming their apprehension. Lyra could see the flickers of interest in their eyes, the skepticism slowly melting away. But one leader, a tall figure adorned with elaborate jewelry and an air of authority, remained steadfast in his skepticism. "And what guarantees do we have that this alliance will not bring us more suffering? We have been betrayed before." Lyra felt her pulse quicken, but she met his gaze with determination. "Trust is built over time, through actions. We are offering you our commitment, our resources, and our hearts. Together, we can learn to heal not only the physical ailments of our people, but also the wounds of distrust that have lingered for too long." The discussion continued, emotions running high as they weighed the potential benefits and risks. Voices rose and fell, and Lyra felt the tension in the air, the balance of their future hanging by a thread. As the hours passed, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow through the hall. Finally, grandmother Kayla raised her hand for silence. "Let us take a moment to reflect," she said, her voice commanding. "We stand at a crossroads. The decision we make here today will resonate through generations. If we are to forge an alliance, it must be built on trust and respect. After a long silence, she looked at her fellow leaders, her eyes searching for understanding. Shall we give this a chance? Will we step into the unknown and embrace the potential that lies before us? One by one, leaders began to nod, their expressions shifting from skepticism to cautious optimism. Lyra's heart soared. They were finally making progress. Harold reached out and squeezed her hand, his eyes shining with pride. "We're doing it, Lyra. This is the beginning." And as the council moved toward a decision, the fate of the Zalrian people shifted in the air, no longer bound by isolation, but instead entwined with the possibilities of a new alliance. The alliance. The atmosphere in the council hall was electric as murmurs of approval echoed through the room. Lyra and Harold exchanged hopeful glances, feeling the weight of the moment shift toward possibility. Grandmother Kayla stood, her presence commanding, ready to formalize the historic agreement. "We have heard the proposals and the concerns of our leaders," she began, her voice resonating in the charged air. "Today, we embark on a path of unity, acknowledging that our survival may very well depend on it. We shall welcome our Earth allies into our homes and lives, and in return, we will share the richness of our culture and knowledge." Lyra felt a wave of relief wash over her. This was the moment she had fought for, not just for herself, but for her entire race. The room erupted into applause, and the mood shifted from skepticism to cautious enthusiasm. As the clamor of voices filled the space, Lyra's heart swelled with pride. As the applause faded, a voice rose above the crowd. Rinok, the leader who had voiced the most skepticism during the earlier discussions. He stepped forward, his long, flowing robes shimmering in the light. "I agree to this alliance, but on one condition: we must conduct trials to ensure that our people are safe. I will not have our trust taken for granted." Lyra nodded, understanding his apprehensions. "I wholeheartedly agree, Rinok. Trust must be earned. We can establish a series of cooperative projects where both our people work side by side, learning and growing from each other. These projects can serve as a foundation for our alliance." Grandmother Kayla smiled, impressed by Lyra's response. "Very well. We shall appoint representatives from both worlds to oversee these projects. Let us forge ahead, but remember, trust is a delicate thing. It can take years to build, but can crumble in an instant." As plans began to take shape, Harold felt a surge of excitement. "What kinds of projects can we start with? We should focus on areas that are crucial to both our peoples. Perhaps healing technologies, agriculture, and education." The council buzzed with enthusiasm, brainstorming ideas. The leaders tossed around concepts for joint research teams, agricultural exchanges, and cultural festivals. It was as if a dam had broken, releasing a torrent of creativity and collaboration. Lyra felt a sense of hope blossoming within her. For the first time, her people were opening themselves to the possibility of learning from others. But as discussions progressed, she could feel a lingering tension. Though the alliance was forming, the scars of past betrayals still ran deep within their community. As the council meeting drew to a close, Grandmother Kayla looked around the room, her expression serious. "We will reconvene in 3 cycles to review our progress. Remember, the strength of this alliance will rely on our ability to communicate openly and work together. We must not allow fear to cloud our judgment." After the meeting, Lyra and Harold stepped outside into the vibrant daylight, a world alive with color and possibility. The square was bustling with activity. Children played in the distance, while vendors sold their wares, their laughter mingling with the sweet sense of local delicacies. "I can't believe it. We did it, Lyra," Harold exclaimed, throwing his arms around her in excitement. Lyra laughed, her heart racing. "We did, but now the real work begins. We need to ensure that this alliance holds strong and that our people embrace the changes." Harold nodded, his expression shifting from elation to determination. "Let's start by engaging the community. We need to show them the benefits of this alliance firsthand. That evening, Lyra and Harold organized a gathering in the village square, inviting all the Zarians to share a meal with their human counterparts. They wanted to demonstrate the beauty of cooperation through the universal language of food. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the sky, villagers filled the square, their faces painted with curiosity. Long tables were set up, adorned with an array of earth and Zarian dishes, creating a fusion of flavors that represented both cultures. The air was fragrant with spices, and the sounds of laughter and chatter filled the space. Lyra stood on a makeshift platform, her heart racing as she addressed the crowd. "Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we celebrate the beginning of our alliance. Together, we will create a future where our peoples can thrive side by side." The crowd erupted in applause, but Lyra could sense some hesitation lingering beneath the surface. As they began to serve the food, she moved through the crowd, engaging in conversations, eager to address the concerns she knew some still harbored. One elder approached her, his face lined with age and experience. "You speak of unity, Lyra, but how do we know that humans will not turn on us as others have?" Lyra paused, searching for the right words. "I understand your concerns. Trust is built over time, and I know that actions speak louder than words. We invite you to meet our people, to learn about our customs and values. This alliance is not merely for show, it is a commitment to our futures." The elder nodded slowly, still skeptical but willing to engage. "Very well, I will watch closely." As the evening wore on, Lyra noticed that some of the Zarians were beginning to warm to Harold. Laughter bubbled up as they exchanged stories and shared their favorite dishes. A group of children from both races began playing together, their laughter blending into the warm night air. As the festivities continued, Harold stood next to Lyra, a soft smile on his face. "This is amazing. Look at them. They're starting to connect." "It's just the beginning," Lyra replied, her heart swelling with hope. "If we can keep this momentum going, I believe we can heal the rifts that have formed over generations." Just then, the leader Rinnock approached, a plate of food in his hands. "I must admit, I did not expect to enjoy this. Earth cuisine," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "But I find it delightful." Harold beamed. "I'm glad you're enjoying it. Food has a unique way of bringing people together, doesn't it?" "Indeed," Rinnock replied, his tone shifting slightly. "I have seen enough fear in our world. If we are to move forward, we must be willing to explore the unfamiliar. Perhaps I can learn more about your people." Lyra felt her heart leap at Rinnock's words. "Absolutely. We would be honored to share our knowledge and traditions with you. Maybe we can organize cultural exchange sessions." As the night progressed, Lyra witnessed an unexpected bond forming among the Zarians and humans. They danced, shared stories, and laughed together, breaking down barriers that had stood for far too long. By the end of the night, as the stars began to twinkle overhead, Lyra felt a sense of warmth envelop her heart. This alliance was not just a political maneuver, it was the beginning of a new way of life. In the days that followed, the alliance began to take shape. Joint committees were established, and collaborative projects commenced. The first focus was on healthcare, with human doctors sharing their knowledge of advanced medical practices while learning about Zarian herbal remedies. Lyra watched as humans and Zarians worked side by side in the makeshift clinics set up across the village. The initial tensions slowly faded as they exchanged ideas, combining their expertise to create innovative solutions to combat the plague ravaging Altheria. As weeks passed, the results became evident. Patients who had once been deemed hopeless began to show signs of improvement. The shared knowledge was not only healing bodies, but also forging deeper connections between the two peoples. One day, as Lyra walked through the clinic, she spotted Rinnock consulting with a human doctor, a genuine smile on his face. "It seems we may learn more from each other than we originally thought," he remarked, glancing at Lyra. "I've always believed that our differences could be our greatest strength," she replied, feeling a rush of excitement at how far they had come. As the projects expanded, the cultural exchanges flourished. Festivals celebrating both Earth and Zarian traditions became regular events where music, dance, and art were shared. The community thrived in a way Lyra had never imagined, each day bringing new surprises and connections. But beneath this burgeoning camaraderie, Lyra remained vigilant. While the alliance was strong, the lingering echoes of distrust still had the potential to erupt. Rumors and old fears could surface at any moment, threatening to unravel the fragile fabric they were weaving. One evening, while preparing for the next festival, Lyra received troubling news from a friend in the council. There are whispers among the council members, Lyra. Some believe that this alliance is a betrayal of our traditions. They fear that by embracing humans, we risk losing our identity. Lyra felt a knot tighten in her stomach. We can't let fear dictate our future. We need to engage with them, show them the benefits of this alliance, and reassure them that we can retain our identity while growing alongside our new allies. Determined, she gathered the council members for an emergency meeting. As they convened, Lyra could sense the tension in the room. Many were still wary, their voices filled with anxiety of the changes unfolding around them. "I understand your concerns," Lyra began, her voice steady. "But we must remember that our identity is not defined by isolation. We can honor our culture while embracing the gifts that others bring. Our alliance is not a threat, it is an opportunity." Rinnox spoke up, his tone firm yet respectful. "I have witnessed the benefits of our collaboration firsthand. The humans have brought knowledge and healing that we could never have achieved alone, but we must also respect our traditions." "Let us not forget the strength in diversity," Harold added, stepping forward. "We can learn from each other while maintaining the core of who we are. This alliance doesn't erase your culture, it enhances it." After much deliberation, the council reached a consensus. They would launch a series of community discussions to address concerns and explore ways to honor Zarian traditions while incorporating new influences. Lyra left the meeting feeling invigorated. They were at a pivotal moment, and this was their chance to solidify the alliance not just politically, but within the hearts of their people. As the next festival approached, the excitement in the air was palpable. Lyra and Harold worked tirelessly, preparing events that showcased both cultures. Zarian art exhibits alongside human performances, traditional Zarian dances intertwined with earth music, creating a tapestry of celebration that honored both worlds. On the day of the festival, the village square transformed into a vibrant scene filled with colors, sounds, and scents. Lyra watched as the Zarians and humans mingled, their laughter echoing through the air, the tension of past fears melting away in the glow of camaraderie. But as the celebrations unfolded, Lyra noticed a shadow lurking on the periphery, figures cloaked in darkness, their expressions grim. She felt an instinctual chill run down her spine. The rumors of dissent had not been mere whispers, they were manifesting. As the festival reached its peak, Lyra sensed that danger was looming. Unbeknownst to her, the fate of the alliance hung in the balance, poised to face a challenge that would test the bonds they had forged in the face of adversity. Shadows of betrayal. The festival had reached its zenith, and the vibrant energy in the village square was infectious. Laughter mingled with the lively tunes played by musicians from both worlds, their melodies weaving a rich tapestry of sound that echoed under the starlit sky. Lyra stood at the center, her heart swelling with pride as she watched Zarians and humans dancing together, celebrating their newfound unity. But amid the festivities, Lyra's unease only grew. The shadowy figures she had spotted earlier still loomed at the edges of the celebration, whispering among themselves. There was something unsettling about their demeanor, a tension in the air that sent a shiver down her spine. She could feel the darkness creeping into what was meant to be a joyous occasion. As the night wore on, she approached Harold, who was animatedly chatting with a group of children. "Harold," she said, pulling him aside, "I can't shake this feeling. There's something wrong. Those figures, they don't seem like they're here to celebrate." Harold's brow furrowed with concern. "I noticed them too. We should keep an eye on them. If they're part of the dissenting faction, it could spell trouble for our alliance. Lyra nodded, her mind racing. We need to address this now. I can't let fear seep into the hearts of our people, not after everything we've built. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the square, followed by a collective gasp. Lyra spun around to see a group of Zarians confronting one of the shadowy figures, their voices raised in anger. You dare show your face here after what you've done? You're a traitor, one shouted, pointing an accusatory finger. The figure, a hulking man named Vorok, glared back defiantly. I'm no traitor. You've blinded yourselves with false hope. Humans will only bring ruin to our kind. Lyra felt her blood run cold. Vorok was a known dissenter, one who had rallied support against the Alliance. This isn't the time for division. She called out, stepping forward to confront him. Look around you. People from both worlds are finding joy and hope together. Don't you see that? Vorok's laugh was harsh, cutting through the festive atmosphere like a knife. You're naive, Lyra. These humans, what do you know of their true nature? They will betray us when it suits them. They're here to exploit our weaknesses, not to help us. Harold moved beside Lyra, his expression fierce. You're the one spreading fear and hatred, Vorok. We've seen nothing but kindness from our new allies. What do you hope to gain by inciting discord? The tension in the square escalated as more villagers gathered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Some whispered among themselves, while others began to side with Vorok, their doubts feeding into his rhetoric. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Lyra murmured to Harold, her heart racing. We can't let this spiral out of control. We need to show everyone the truth. Let's invite him to share his perspective, Harold suggested. If we allow him to speak and confront his fears in front of the crowd, it might help diffuse the situation. Lyra hesitated, the idea filling her with apprehension. What if he incites more anger? What if he stirs up old fears? Then we counter those fears with our truth. But if we don't give him a platform, he will only fester in the shadows, Harold reasoned, his eyes steady. With a deep breath, Lyra stepped forward again. Vorok, if you believe what you're saying, then you should come up here and share your thoughts. Let's discuss this openly, in front of everyone. Vorok looked taken aback, as if caught off guard by her suggestion. He hesitated, glancing at the crowd. You want me to speak? In front of these traitors? Yes, in front of everyone, Lyra replied, her voice firm. We cannot build an alliance on secrets and shadows. If you truly believe there's a threat, then let's talk about it. We're all here to listen. Vorok's eyes narrowed, but he stepped forward, anger fueling his movements. Fine, I will expose the truth. You think these humans are here to help us. You think they care about our fate. They only want to strip away our heritage, our identity. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, some nodding in agreement, while others looked uncertain. Lyra sensed a crack forming in the foundation they had built together, and she felt her resolve strengthen. And how do you propose we survive? In isolation? Or do you truly believe that we can overcome this plague without support? Your faith in them is misplaced, Vorok shot back, his voice rising. They'll abandon us when we need them most. I have seen it with my own eyes. Their greed knows no bounds. They will take our resources, our culture, and leave us with nothing. Lyra's heart raced as she fought to regain control of the narrative. If you truly believe that, then let's bring forth evidence. Show us where humans have exploited others. But we cannot ignore the progress we've made together. We've healed the sick and shared knowledge. This is not a betrayal, it's a partnership. As murmurs rippled through the crowd, a young Zarian woman stepped forward, her voice steady. I was ill before the humans arrived. They treated me with care and respect. I don't feel betrayed. I feel grateful for their help. Isn't that worth something? Lyra seized the opportunity. This is not about loyalty to one race over another. This is about survival. The threat we face is real, but our strength lies in unity, not division. If we are to overcome this plague, we must work together. The crowd began to stir, shifting their allegiance as they considered her words. But Vorok refused to relent, his eyes blazing with fervor. And what about the sacrifices? Those who will fall victim to this alliance? Are we prepared to watch our people suffer for your dreams? Enough. A voice boomed from the back of the crowd. It was Grandmother Kayla, her presence commanding silence. She stepped forward, her gaze piercing as she focused on Vorok. You speak of sacrifice, yet you offer no solutions. All I see is fear masquerading as wisdom. Do you wish to lead us back to darkness? Vorok flinched but regained his composure. I wish to protect our people from being exploited. We have been betrayed before. History has shown us that outsiders often bring ruin. Kayla shook her head. History also teaches us that unity can overcome adversity. We must not repeat the mistakes of the past by shutting ourselves away. Our strength is not in isolation, but in understanding and collaboration. As the crowd began to murmur in agreement, Lyra felt the tide shifting. Vorok's grip on their hearts was weakening, but she knew they needed something more. Let's show everyone the impact of our alliance. Let's invite the humans to present what we've achieved together. We need to share our success stories, not just the fears. With that, she turned to Harold, who was watching with a mix of admiration and concern. What do you think? Absolutely. It's time for everyone to see what we can accomplish together, he replied, a fire igniting in his eyes. Let's highlight the collaborative projects, the healing centers, the educational exchanges, everything that demonstrates our alliance's power. As Lyra stepped back to address the crowd, she felt a rush of adrenaline. We will invite the human representatives to share their knowledge and our achievements. Tomorrow, we will hold a forum to showcase how our collaboration has saved lives and enriched our cultures. If you have concerns, let's address them openly. Vorok stood there, fuming, but the crowd's mood had shifted. The seeds of doubt he had planted began to wither in the face of hope and determination. The following day, the forum was held in the village square, with humans and Zarians alike gathering to share their stories. The atmosphere was electric as representatives from both sides took to the stage. The crowd was a mix of skepticism and curiosity, eager to see what evidence would be presented. Harold began, sharing stories of human innovations in medicine and agriculture, illustrating how the joint efforts had led to tangible results. He detailed the advancements made in healing the sick and improving food security. With each story, he built a bridge of understanding, illuminating the collaborative spirit of their alliance. Then it was Lyra's turn. Standing before the crowd, she felt the weight of their gazes. What we are building here is not just an alliance, it's a new way of life. Together, we have seen how cooperation can yield incredible results. It is through sharing knowledge, resources, and compassion that we can overcome the challenges ahead. As she spoke, she noticed Vorok lurking at the back of the crowd, his expression darkening as she captured their attention. He could see the hope blossoming, and it infuriated him. She knew that he wouldn't easily back down. But as the forum continued, Lyra could see the power of their shared stories melting the barriers of fear. Zarians began to ask questions, engaging with the human representatives, seeking to learn more about their customs, their technology, and their world. The day was a turning point, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating the square with a warm golden hue, Lyra felt a surge of hope. They had taken a crucial step toward unity. Yet, lurking beneath the surface, she sensed Vorok's anger brewing. He was not a man to be easily swayed, and she knew that the dissenting faction wouldn't simply vanish. Tomorrow, she would need to prepare for the backlash. That night, as Lyra lay in bed, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The festival had brought them together, but it had also exposed the fractures in their alliance. She resolved to speak with Kayla and Harold first thing in the morning, planning their next move carefully. Little did she know, the darkness was not done yet. Vorok was plotting, and the struggle for the future of their alliance had only just begun. The calm before the storm. The following morning dawned bright and clear, yet Lyra awoke with a sense of foreboding. The events of the previous day lingered in her mind, a vivid tapestry of hope and tension woven into her thoughts. As the sun streamed through her window, illuminating her modest room, she couldn't shake the feeling that the fragile peace they had achieved was hanging by a thread. She quickly dressed and made her way to the village square, where preparations for the follow-up forum were already underway. The square, once vibrant with laughter and music, now felt charged with anticipation and uncertainty. Humans and Zarians busied themselves setting up stalls to showcase their collaborative projects, but an undercurrent of tension rippled through the air. Upon arriving, Lara spotted Harold discussing logistics with a few human representatives. He was animated, his enthusiasm infectious, yet she could see the worry etched on his face. As she approached, he glanced up and offered a reassuring smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Lyra, I was just talking about how to display our latest innovations," he said, trying to sound upbeat. "The Joint Medical Center has some incredible results to share. I think we'll be able to dispel a lot of fears today." She nodded but could not fully share his optimism. "What about Voruk? He won't sit idly by after yesterday. He's not just going to accept our unity, he'll want to fight against it." Harold's expression darkened. "I know. I've heard whispers that he's gathering a group to disrupt today's events. We need to be prepared for anything." As they discussed their strategy, Laura felt a sudden chill sweep through the square. She turned to see Vorok standing at the far edge, flanked by a group of discontented Zarians. Their faces were hardened with determination, and it was clear that they had come to make a statement. "We can't let him dominate the conversation," Lyra said urgently. "If he tries to incite unrest, we need to counteract it swiftly. We can't let our people be swayed by fear-mongering." "I'll address the crowd first," Harold suggested. "I'll remind them of the good we've done together and urge them to listen to our allies. We can't let Vorok twist the narrative." Lyra felt a surge of gratitude toward Harold's unwavering support. "And I'll be ready to back you up. If Vorok tries to speak, we'll call him out. We can't allow his lies to take root." With their plan in place, they turned their attention back to the square, where more villagers had begun to gather. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and apprehension, and Lyra could sense the pivotal nature of the day ahead. As the forum commenced, Harold took the stage, and the crowd fell silent. His presence commanded attention, and as he began to speak, Laura felt a wave of hope wash over her. "We stand here today, not just as Zarians and humans, but as partners in a shared future," Harold proclaimed, his voice strong and steady. "Together, we've accomplished incredible things, healing the sick, sharing knowledge, and learning from one another. Our alliance is not just an idea, it is a reality that has already begun to change lives for the better." Cheers erupted from the audience, and Lyra felt her heart lift. But just as Harold was gaining momentum, Vorok's voice rang out, cutting through the applause like a thunderclap. "Your optimism is misplaced, Harold," Vorok shouted, stepping forward with a defiant glare. "You talk of unity while you play at being friends, but do not forget that our kind has suffered at the hands of outsiders before. We cannot ignore history." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, and Lyra's heart sank as she recognized the familiar seeds of doubt sprouting among her people. "This is what I was afraid of," she murmured to Harold, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to counter his narrative, now." Before she could react, she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Grandmother Kayla, who had moved closer to the stage. "Let me speak," she said, her voice calm and commanding. "This is a moment we cannot squander. We need to remind our people of our shared struggles and victories." Lyra watched as Kayla stepped onto the platform, her presence radiating wisdom and authority. "Vorok speaks of suffering, and he is right," Kayla began. "Our people have faced hardship, and we must never forget our past. But it is through understanding and unity that we will forge a new path. Fear can only divide us, hope can unite us." Vorok scoffed, but Kayla pressed on. Look around you. We have humans standing beside us today, eager to share in our triumphs and our sorrows. They offer us a partnership, not a threat. When we stand together, we are stronger than any division. The crowd murmured in agreement, and Lyra felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps Kayla's words could sway the hearts that were wavering. But Vorik was not finished. "And what are the sacrifices? Have we forgotten the pain we've endured?" he shouted, his voice dripping with contempt. "What happens when our allies turn their backs on us? Are we to trust them blindly?" At that moment, a young Zarian man stepped forward from the crowd, his voice steady and unwavering. "Trust is built through actions, not words. Look at the evidence. We have been helped by our human allies time and again. We've shared our knowledge, our resources, and our hopes. This is our chance to forge a future." Lyra felt her heart soar as others began to voice their support, recounting their experiences of collaboration and friendship with the humans. The tide was shifting, and she could sense Vorik's frustration mounting as he struggled to regain control of the narrative. Seeing the growing momentum, Harold took the opportunity to address the crowd again. "Together, we've created something extraordinary, a bond that transcends our differences. We must not allow the fear of the past to dictate our future." The energy in the square surged as more voices joined in, sharing their stories of hope and unity. The atmosphere was electric, and for a moment, it felt like the weight of history was lifting. Yet, in the midst of this hopeful exchange, Lyra caught sight of Vorik's expression. His face was a mask of rage, and it was clear that he was not about to back down. As she scanned the crowd, she noticed a few others among the dissenters, their faces twisted in anger, whispering to one another. Suddenly, without warning, Vorik lunged forward, shoving one of the human representatives aside as he took the stage. "You think you can silence me?" he bellowed, his voice dripping with venom. "You think I'll allow you to lead us into ruin?" Gasps filled the crowd as the tension escalated. "Enough!" Lyra shouted, stepping forward to confront him. "This isn't just about you or your fears. This is about the future of both our people." Vorik sneered. "And what future do you envision? One where we bow to our human friends? We have everything to lose, and I refuse to stand by while you throw our heritage away." The crowd erupted into chaos, voices rising as people struggled to voice their opinions over one another. Lyra felt her heart race, the discord threatening to spiral out of control. "Listen," she cried, trying to regain their attention. "We cannot let fear drive us apart. We need to confront this together." But Vorik was relentless, his anger propelling him forward. "They will turn on you. They will take everything, and you will be left with nothing. I know it. I've seen it happen before." Suddenly, from behind, a group of Zarians emerged, backing Vorik up, their expressions fierce. "We stand with Vorik. The alliance is a threat to our way of life." Lyra felt her stomach drop. This was escalating faster than she had anticipated. She exchanged glances with Harold, who looked equally alarmed. "We need to unite against this division," Harold implored, his voice barely breaking through the clamor. "If we allow ourselves to be swayed by fear, we risk losing everything we've worked for." Vorik seized on Harold's words, spinning them into his own narrative. "See, they're afraid. They fear the truth. They will exploit our trust." As the crowd began to split, Lyra felt a surge of desperation. "We can't give in to fear. We must trust in each other, in the good we've done, in the progress we've made." But Vorik's Groot was growing bolder, pushing back against the tide of unity. Their chants of distrust echoed in the square, drowning out the voices of hope. Lyra's heart raced as she looked around, realizing that the celebration was transforming into a battleground of ideologies, each side digging in their heels. In that moment, she knew they had to act decisively. She stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "If we want to prove our strength, let us do so together. We need to show everyone what we can achieve when we work as one." "Prove it," Vorik shouted, challenging her. "Show us the strength of your precious alliance." Lyra paused, the weight of his challenge heavy on her shoulders. Then an idea sparked in her mind. Let's demonstrate our unity in a challenge. A contest to show that our alliance is stronger than division. The crowd went silent, curious about her proposal. What kind of contest? A voice called out from the back. A contest that tests our skills, our knowledge, and our spirit, Lyra exclaimed, her confidence growing. We can pit our best against each other, Zarians and humans alike. We will showcase our strengths and demonstrate that together we can overcome any challenge. The murmurs grew louder as people began to consider her proposal. Lyra could see the flicker of hope igniting in the crowd, and even among the dissenters, hesitation crept in. Vorik narrowed his eyes, contemplating her words. And if we lose? Then we'll all have to reevaluate our beliefs, Lyra replied firmly. But if we win, it will prove that our alliance is unbreakable. We can show that working together can achieve incredible things. Harold stepped beside her, his expression resolute. Let's create challenges that emphasize our strengths. We can have contests of strength, intellect, and creativity. Let the people decide through their participation and their voices. Gradually, the crowd began to buzz with excitement, and even Vorik seemed taken aback by the sudden shift in energy. You think a game can change anything, he scoffed. It's not just a game, Vorik, Lyra shot back. It's a chance for us to redefine what our future can look like. If we can come together, it will mark the beginning of a new chapter, one where fear has no place. With the crowd rallying behind her, Lyra felt a surge of hope. They had turned the tide, but she knew the battle was far from over. As plans for the contest began to take shape, she caught Vorik's glare, a warning that he wouldn't back down easily. The tension in the air was palpable as she turned to Harold and Kayla. We need to prepare. This contest must be a testament to our unity. We need to prove to everyone, including Vorik, that our alliance is unshakable. Yes, Kayla replied, her voice steady. We'll show them that unity is our greatest strength. But in the shadows, Vorik was already plotting his next move. He would not allow their hope to extinguish his vision for their future. As the festival shifted gears into preparations for the contest, the winds of change were blowing, but they carried both hope and danger. Lyra could sense that this was only the beginning. Tomorrow would reveal not only their strengths, but also the depths of their resolve to stand united against the darkness that threatened to tear them apart.